Okay, we should be live everywhere. All right. Hey everyone, I am HP Holo. I write fun, action-packed fantasy adventure, and I also write the same thing as Edie Skye, just with more smut. I am here again with my trophy husband, Jacob Holo, and you can introduce yourself, Jacob.
I am Jacob Holo. I write science fiction. I'm best known for writing, co-authoring the Gordian Division series with David Weber.
All right. And well, this is our show. This is our second episode. And man, it's going to be an episode. So we always start out. We've done 2 episodes. So we like to start out. This is a little series that we started last month, just kind of hang out with readers, give everyone some updates on what we're doing and things of that nature. And this month it starts off dark, you guys, because I mean it's frankly it's been one of the worst weeks of my life. Let's be real. For those who have not been following the saga on Facebook, the short version of this week is that I took Nova to the vet for her annual checkup, not really expecting to get all that much news, and found out the very next day that all of her kidney numbers were in basically stage 4 kidney disease, absolute kidney failure. And over the course of the week, sure, her symptoms just fell like dominoes, and we had to make some tough decisions this week. And Nova passed on peacefully and comfortably on Wednesday, but passed on. And so it's been a tough week over here because Nova was, I got my tissues. Hopefully, I will not need them, but Nova was a key part of well, I mean, just our presence in general. Like, man, I'm pretty sure Nova had more fans than we
do. We've been married for 11 years. We've had Nova in the house for 9 of those years.
Yeah, so. And it's just it's been an absurd week because she's one of those cats where she's really she liked to be with you, and she was in every corner of this house. Like, I saw a piece of lint and started crying over it because she used to like eat lint to make us feel bad and feed her real food, even though she always had food whenever she wanted. But so it's been a week. But as of yesterday, it ends on a somewhat absurd note. So my family knows what we've been going through with Nova, and my mom received a call from one of my cousins, and one thing you have to understand about my family is we have a kind of cat network, an unspoken cat network. Cats find us and we help them find where they're supposed to be. And we don't actually like organize or anything. It just happens. And my mom received a text from one of my cousins. Her boyfriend had found a little kitten abandoned on one of his construction sites. She went and rescued him and brought him home without telling her mom. And her mom came home and saw the kitten food in the garage. And this girl already has like 2 cats that she got through similar means. Like this family has a ton of animals, but her mom.
I think they already have 2 cats and 2 dogs in that house. So
yeah, but they had more before, but all of them, hit old age at a certain point. But anyway, so. But Livy had a plan. Her mom basically said, we're not having another cat in this house. You just got another one. You just found another one. and so but when she brought the cat home, she knew, and she texted my mom and was like, I know it's really soon, but we have this cat and he needs a good home. And I was really slow to, like, I was hesitant because, we'd lost Nova on Wednesday, and here we get this text on Friday, and I'm still grieving. And not like I'm an ugly crier, you guys, and my face was hideous all week. I lost 4 pounds in water weight from all the crying I did and had to make sure I hydrated. Like, it was not not on brand, Heather, at all.
You do have very healthy tear ducts.
Oh, I do. It's like straight up Studio Ghibli anime cry, but it's not nearly as appealing to look at. But anyway, so I showed Jacob this text, and I'm like, I'm going to be in town tomorrow anyway. Let's go look at the cat. And Jacob's like, you know what? Let's just go look at this cat tonight. And so we go out there and we meet this little kitten. And you guys, no, Nova had some very specific traits. She would always flop over so you could scratch her. She was very vocal. Like, she would carry on conversations with you. She had a distinct little squeaky meow, and she loved everybody. And we went and met this little cat that had been abandoned, and it was like he's malnourished and sad looking and everything. But there was so much of Nova in that little cat that I just broke right there. Like, I just for the sake of formality, I said, Jacob, let's discuss this cat on the way home and see what we're going to do. Because if we were going to adopt it, like, our house is set up for a senior cat, not the fountain of energy that would have been a 4-week-old cat. And but long story short, we have a new cat within a few days of losing Nova. His name, Jacob, tell them where the name came from.
What?
What?
Well, you had made this post about Nova, about kind of summarizing Nova and kind of working through some of your grief. And you mentioned what is it, the Rainbow Road?
Yeah, the Rainbow Bridge. Rainbow Bridge.
Rainbow Bridge.
Some animals go over to Rainbow Road.
Nova is in.
Some would say Nova crossed the Rainbow Bridge, but I prefer to say she fell through the dazzling skies, which is, for those who have not read Monster Punk Horizon, the setting of, or somewhat the setting in which book Nova lives. And so, in homage to Nova, and as a reference to that universe, are you crying? You want me to bring you tissue?
I'm okay.
Okay. We named him Dazzle.
Emotions may happen tonight without
warning. Yes, emotions may happen tonight, but we're hoping to leave the sad part behind soon because we got to talk about outlines and other stuff. But anyway, his name is Dazzle. We call him Daz for short. He will probably have 13 other names by the time we actually show him to you. He's not going to be on screen tonight because he has had a few days, because he was on a construction site 2 days ago. He has had so many baths because of fleas. He is traumatized right now. and we just decided to let him hang out and decompress, and he will make his first appearance on our next show. But yeah, he's an absolute sweetheart. Oh my gosh, you guys. He's oh my gosh, I love him so much. I mean, I cry a lot at him because he reminds me so much of Nova. He keeps sitting on Nova's stuff too, like he enjoys it, and it's just anyway, we have outlines to talk about. So before we get to our outlines, general news for us. Oh, first of all, dang, I made a huge note to say this, and one of the points I wanted to make this evening is that one of the things, like, this week has been hard, but one of the things that has really helped us so much is the sheer outpouring of sympathy and support from readers. Like, I fully expected people to be sad when Nova passed, but I did not expect all the messages that I got and all the comments that we got, and people who only know us through a few pixels on the internet saying, let us know what we can do to help. And it's just, I know that when you leave those comments on someone's sad post, like, you're leaving one comment. It doesn't feel like it makes any difference, but oh my gosh, you guys, it does so much. And it's, in a lot of ways, it's been a privilege to have the kind of readership that we have, because I would be crying right now if I did not have all of those good vibes to coast on. And so thank you, you guys. It's genuinely been one of the things that has gotten us through this week. And yeah.
So. I mean, I think that I'm a little, both Heather and I are going through a bit of a grieving process here. I mean, Nova was a part of the family.
Mm-hmm. It felt very much like losing a human family member. Like, I did not expect it to hit me nearly as hard as it did.
And I'm a bit further along in that process, because I think I picked up on what was going on with Nova earlier than Heather did.
Well, she hangs out with you more.
But
'Cause she was,
there's that,
yeah.
and there's your optimism,
Yeah, that's
that
true. My
sometimes
optimism.
works against you.
Yeah. I wouldn't consider myself a toxic optimist, but I definitely hold out hope longer than I should have
Yeah.
sometimes. But you know, the thing about it was that like I wanted to do my due diligence to make sure that that we did what we could to help her out. And when
Yeah.
it became clear that there was no getting the old Nova back, no matter what we did, it was I didn't want her to suffer, so it was time. And I see comments. I'll get to the comments. but I keep seeing you look to the side of the screen like you're looking at the comments, and but yeah. So, but I did want to make sure.
I can't help it. The comments are drawing my eyes.
Yeah, but thank you, everyone. Like genuinely, like across all our social media feeds and Patreon and everywhere. Like I've received messages from people I haven't spoken to since high school who loved Nova, and it means so much to me to know that you guys loved her as much as we did, even though you never actually met her for the most part. And it was just it was one of the it was one of the uplifting things about the week. So now we can continue, and hopefully neither of us will cry. So
get this stream on track.
Steven asks, hey Steven, asks, does Jacob ever exist without a bow tie? Yes, but he won't let me post pictures of him with it. It's like it's brand rules. I've tried. Would you like to contribute, Jacob?
Well, I mean, there's a whole story about the bow tie, but that's not really the stream for the bow tie story now, is it?
Well, we'll have to do a stream just about, honestly, a stream about how we decided upon our author brand stuff in general would actually be a pretty cool idea. And by the way, guys, we can pick topics to talk about, but we will also talk about whatever you want. And we're going to do this at least once a month. So if you have something you want to hear us talk about, just leave it in the comments or scream it really loud.
This is going to be a very casual, regular stream. That's our plan anyway.
Yeah, that's our plan. And so, and then
but we do want to get to our topic.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we're 12 minutes in. But yeah, hey, Froby, good to see you again. I am sorry I have not responded to your messages, but you know what's going on. So I have not been attentive to my Patreon this week. I have not been attentive too much this week. Let's be real. So let's see. Next thing on my list, we have thanked the fans. I can take that off my list. Some slight book announcements before we get to outlines. First of all, the mass market paperback edition of the Janus File just came out. So if you would like a little bite-sized version of the novel, go to wherever you buy books and hit them up. Next, we got our author copies of the Dyson File, which comes out roughly in a month, I want to say. So that's
November
7th.
6th or 7th?
7th sounds right. I have
early November.
Most marketing numbers have just fallen out of my head this week. And it's like, I know I know there are other people, friends of mine, who are publishing me. I just need to say, I know the contracts are in my inbox. I'm getting to them tomorrow, because tomorrow I will actually have work brain. So yeah, I've got so many messages that have just been, yeah. But Steven says, yeah, you got to keep to the outline after all. Ha! Yes. Tried to stay focused. Yes. Next thing. Also, I don't think there's actually an Amazon link for it yet, but if you have been starving for more Monster Punk Horizon, I have a Monster Punk Horizon story coming up in It Came from the Trailer Park Volume 3. And I literally just saw the cover for it right before we started this. So that is coming up, and I think it releases on Halloween. I might have my dates off, but just keep your eyeballs out for it. That is a really fun series. It's like creature feature, redneck fantasy kind of stuff. And I can talk more about that short story later, because we got more stuff to do. Also, since the Dyson File is coming out, we have stuff. We've got a signing coming up at the Barnes & Noble on Haywood Road in Greenville, South Carolina. And that will be on November 11th from 12 to 4. So if you would like to get your book signed in person, come to that Barnes & Noble and Jacob will sign your stuff. If you cannot make it to that signing but still want to get a signed copy, Fiction Addiction also in Greenville has signed copies that you can pre-order, and once all the books come in, Jacob will go up there and sign them. I will put links in the comments once we actually start talking, when Jacob is talking and I actually have a break. But I'm making sure I made all my announcements. Yeah, I made all my announcements. So now we can start talking about outlines. 15 minutes into our show. All right. So I already know the answer to some of these questions, naturally, because we're married. But Jacob.
Yes.
Are you an outliner or a pantser?
I am very much an outliner, a planner. So okay. So the last thing that I wrote, the most recent thing that I wrote is a short story. It's actually will hopefully appear in a future Honorverse anthology, and so that short story, 10,000 words long. I think my outline for it was close to 2,000 words. So
that's chunky for a short story outline.
Well, yeah, but I like to go in prepared.
Yeah.
So
especially
I'd say
for a short story that involves the kind of detail that Honorverse stuff does.
Well, yeah, and with David Weber's Honor Harrington novels, the Honorverse series, there's a lot of depth to the world building. So in terms of dipping my toe into that series, want to make sure that I'm doing it right. So yeah, there was probably a little bit more. There definitely was more outlining and prep work because I was also working with Tom Pope, who is the Honorverse editor extraordinaire, and who does a fantastic job of wrangling all the lore details from that series.
Oh yeah, he's amazing.
Yes, and he's also a really cool guy. We sometimes have we have business meetings weekly just because of the project overlap, and so some of those a good portion of those meetings we just like talk video games. It's like, okay, this is just going to be the point where we both talk about what we're playing right now.
Yep.
I'd say with most of my outlining is for novel length work, and I'd say that the typical outline ends up being around 15,000 words long, and that will normally end up translating into, say, like 100 to 150,000 word novel. And I like going in with before I even write the first sentence of a novel, I like to have a very clear idea on basically everything that's going to happen in it. I know exactly where it's going to end. I know what each character is going to go through. I know all the arcs. I know how the technology works, if that's relevant to the book. I know how the magic system works. I know the lore, and on and on and on. And so this then goes to the joke that some people watching this have probably already heard from me, but maybe not, is that I don't actually write novels. I design them and then I construct them. Yep. And I'm only half joking when I say this.
Well, there is a lot of truth to that, because I remember when you send me your outlines, or used to. I can't even remember if you send them to me anymore. We got so much going on, but I remember at one point commenting that you basically, once your outline is done, all you really have to do is prosify it. I mean, because all the story problems tend to be solved. It's very, very.
Oh, I wish they were all solved during the outlining.
Yeah, but it's
a lot of them get sorted out in that process, and that's part of the advantage of going for me to go through that process. And
it's so different from how I do stuff.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But like when I say, it's a 15,000 word outline, what I'm referring to is I'll have a section for every chapter. And then within that, I'll have a scene by scene breakdown. And then I'll have a bullet list under each scene of basically all the points that I need to hit in that scene. And it could be elements of a conversation between two characters, the topics that I need to hit, the information that I need to deliver. It could be elements of the action, anything. Sometimes those, what for the outline, basically the simplest that I'll get is if I'm just going to kind of wing an action scene, which I sometimes do, I'll just put in the line fight, fight, fight.
Yep, I do the same thing. I think I stole that from you.
And it's just like, here be action. Stuff's going to explode. Yep. People are going to get shot. Fight, fight, fight. Yep. And I'll just sort of, kind of feel my way through the action scene and kind of just let it flow. I know how it begins. I know how it needs to end. But the connecting fiber I'm kind of doing in the moment. Mm-hmm. So would you consider that pantsing?
No, you're a heavy outliner. No, I am. Of the two of us, like I have been on a writing journey, shall we say. Now, I used to be a hardcore pantser, but honestly, one of the reasons why that was very early in my writing career, and honestly, one of the reasons why The Wizard's Way doesn't have a sequel as of yet is because I tried to pants the sequel. And I tried to pants the sequel while struggling with then undiagnosed OCD, and it was a hot dang mess. Like, we're talking a 200,000 word draft that was not half the novel and was just so disorganized. And there came a point.
Yeah, I needed like your school for wizards had like so many spy organizations that had infiltrated it. I needed a flow chart and a matrix of character, actual character affiliation.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you didn't know that information either.
Because I was pantsing everything. And so one of the, fast forward to my OCD diagnosis, one of the things we figured out that I was doing was my OCD manifests in somewhat traditional ways too. Like I'm a compulsive checker, for example, and that's something that I have to constantly to work against. But in my writing, it manifests in that I will get obsessed with certain ideas and have to write them through to completion, regardless of whether they actually positively affect the story or not. And that was one of the things that made the Wizard Circus so unwieldy. And so once my OCD was diagnosed and we figured out that that's what I was doing, we looked at my weaknesses and rebuilt my writing process from the ground up to try to wrangle. We tried to diminish my weaknesses and play to my strengths. And as a result, we decided that I was going to write really simplistic, linear plots and outline as much as I could. Now, I am very much, even though I'm no longer a pantser, I'm still very much a discovery writer. And there was a period where, like, I tried to outline in the same way that Jacob does, and it's like I finished the outline and, well, I know what happens now. There's no need for me to write the story. I can't take an outline and then just prosify it like Jacob can. I still need to have some element of surprise in there. But I needed to control what elements of surprise I had. And so what I like to do when I outline, I do the same thing Jacob does when it comes to starting it. I will have the bare skeleton of the story, and I will include the essential plot things that need to happen. And I will basically leave my characters the freedom to follow that map in whatever way they please, but every decision they make has to service the plot. And same thing with world building, because world building is something that I get really buried into. I love it so much, but eventually an exposition dump gets boring. And so my rule is
and then I come in after you've created all this lovely world building with my editor machete, and I just start hacking at the...
Yeah. But
and I'm like, I'm sorry, Heather. I'm sorry. This has to be cut for pacing reasons.
But even then, I find myself continually refining how I outline. Because the thing is, my most recent project, one of the things that has made this month just so bad, like other than losing Nova last week, I had been working on my next novel. So I'm working on the first 3 chapters of my next novel for 2 months. And normally it takes me about a week and a half to write 3 chapters. And I'm like, I'd fully outlined the novel, and the outline made sense and looked efficient when I wrote it. But when I actually started getting into the nitty-gritty of the story and trying to execute everything, I found that even though the outline looked simplistic to me, I was still trying to smash way too many things into each chapter, and I was overwhelming the reader, which is honestly one of my struggles as a writer, even these days. I mean, I continually have to watch out for overwhelming the reader, and so I'd given those chapters. Do what?
I've got your back.
Well, and that actually, I do want to talk about how we approach the outlines and the general structure of Titan Mage, because it's especially relevant to this topic. But basically, even though I had outlined well, I discovered that I still needed to learn more about how I outline. This was the first outline for a complex novel that I had written since my OCD diagnosis, because everything else previously was Monster Punk Horizon, and the entire plot of every Monster Punk Horizon is, oh my gosh, there's a monster, we gotta kill the monster. And they go kill the monster or befriend it or whatever. And it's just very simple stuff. The next Titan Mage series is not nearly that simple, and it's actually far more complex than I would say Titan Mage series 1. But one thing I found is that I had too many moving pieces even in this short outline, and so now we took it apart entirely. Well, actually, backing up, I gave it to Jacob to read. And while he was reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, I had the worst cold of my life, you guys. I was just in bed, incoherent. I couldn't even play Armored Core. I was so mad because the game had just come out and I knew I was getting sick. And before, like, I could sense it coming. And so I went out to like 3 different stores and no one had it except for the last one. And I just spent all this effort trying to get this game so I could play it while I was sick. And then I got too sick to even play Armored Core. And I was just mad the whole time. But anyway, I had that week off, and then I come to... Jacob sends the stuff back, and I'm like, oh, I'm expecting like, oh, this is good, this is perfect, you can submit it now, and it was just it was not my best.
That was not my reaction,
and I cried a bit. I cried a lot, and
I even went out of my way to soften the blow.
Oh, and yeah, and you did not do it the right way. It's funny.
My efforts failed.
But yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, like, it is no secret. In addition to OCD, I have anxiety, and one of my things about anxiety is when I hear something that stresses me out, I need assurance, like within a very short span, or suddenly I'm gonna cry because I think everything is disastrous. And Jacob comes home, and I ask him what he thought, and his response is, "It is salvageable." And normally he'll go into more detail, but he was holding back.
That wasn't how I led it.
Well, it was something like that, though. I can't remember precisely what you said, but I was waiting for more because usually you have more to offer, and it didn't come. And my brain was like, "Oh my gosh, this is. Am I back to square one? This is. Oh my gosh!" And then my little anxiety brain took over, and I was just like crying mess. I've been crying a lot this month. It's really stupid, but which is actually. It actually has led some interesting places. But because of that, we were like, you know what? Part of this is due to the fact that you tried to squish too much into your outline. And so the two of us basically decided to start from square one and approach series 2 in the same way that we approached series 1, more collaboratively on the outlining phase. But basically what we're doing is whenever I did the primary writing on Titan Mage, but Jacob produced the outlines for it. And that was one of the reasons I was able to get it out as fast as I did. Like, I released 5 books in a year. Yeah, 5 books in a year.
Yeah.
And it was because Jacob just had a moment of inspiration and one day just gave me 5 outlines to work from.
Well,
And
it took me a little longer than that.
well, I mean, it was faster than I could produce an outline, because outlines for me take a long time because you have more practice than me.
Yes.
And it's just a slow part of our process right now.
I'd say for the Titan Mage outlines, I was producing one every 2 days.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's crazy fast.
I outlined that entire series within less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, it took me an entire week to finish the outline for the second Titan Mage series, book 1. And just to give you an example, and actually one of the things that I'm doing now to sort of refine my outline writing technique is I'm going to be writing more short stories from here on, and then basically practicing with outlining short stories, because it's more bite-sized. Short stories are excellent to practice with for a lot of things, and so I'm using it for that. But I'm practicing outlining with short stories, and then Jacob and I have been collaborating on, well, actually more than one series, which is something we could talk about later. I see questions again. But yeah, Jacob is working on the outlines and producing the outlines, and what I'm doing.
I'm doing a lot of outlining right now.
Yeah, it's with this particular. This is actually a really, really fun collaborative process, and I know like every collaborate. We basically decided that we're writing collaborations forever, because it's so much more fun when we do it together. Like the 2 months I was working on the 3 chapters, like they were.
You were not happy,
but eventually they stopped being fun, and they weren't fun for Jacob to read. And the moment we decided that we were going to collaborate again in the same way we did for the first Titan Mage, it was like, oh, here's all these ideas I have, and Jacob's like, oh, here's how I can structure this, because Jacob has a much his brain. You're a project planner. I mean, your brain is better at structuring things than I am.
I am slightly more organized than you.
My room, you can tell a lot about our writing processes by looking at our offices, because you see Jacob's. It is nice and clean, and there is a book and a Gundam on it. And my office, it is a fire hazard. It's kind of, I gotta clean it, because so see, it was one of the reasons why it was a mess, because Nova, it's a senior cat, she doesn't do that much, and she was a good cat. Like I could let Nova out of the house and she would follow me around. Like I never had to worry about this cat, and I could have a messy room and trust that she would not hurt herself or mess herself with it. But with Dazzle is 4 weeks old, and I could step on him and destroy him. And so there's we're not letting him into this room until he gets bigger. We're actually not letting him out of the bedroom until he gets bigger, because it's just a safety hazard for him. But we've got to get the house ready for a little kitten. But yeah, he's not allowed in this room because it's a fire hazard and dangerous for someone of his size. He can go in Jacob's office. He can survive Jacob's office. But yeah, I am the spirit of chaos in this house. And I like to think of Jacob as the wrangler of that chaos, because what we've been doing, it's been a whole lot of fun. Like the past several weeks, like once we decided to do this, it has just been fantastic. I will come up with all of my crazy disparate ideas and give them to Jacob. He will figure out the nuances of a plot and then come back to me, and I'll be like, ooh, but what if this? And then we start talking about the details of, how we make this work. And then Jacob goes and he does his outline and then sends it back to me, and then I write it. And we've actually been planning 2 different series. And one of them is Titan Mage Series 2. And then the next one will actually be a harem series set inside the Monster Punk universe. It's not an extension of the main line. Like some of the characters, same characters reappear, so you're seeing a lot of your favorites, but there's a new main character.
Pix and Jazz are going to be in all three books.
It's a Monster Girl series. I mean, it fits so perfectly. It's a monster series. It made sense for me to put thick variants of the monsters in it. And so Jacob has been helping me figure out what Monster Girls we make and how to fit them in, because some of them are going to be based upon like original monsters, and so it's like, how do we make this original monster that is evocative enough of an existing Monster Girl type, and how do we make a plot that works it, or that where they work together? And so I want to say you're working on outline 3, and then you're going to get to...
I'm about halfway through outline 3.
Yeah, and then I am just decompressing right now from between sick and bad writing experience and cat. My brain is just this week, and so I've actually started to get some of my creativity back, astonishingly, since Dazzle has shown up. So he's magical, but I've completely forgot where I was going. Anyway, we have a question from Steven. This is a question for Jacob, and says, how do you go about creating the non-prose draft of the novel? I assume it doesn't pop into existence as a fully bullet-pointed document.
No, it does not. So there's a kind of process leading up to creating the outline, for me at least. So starting with the basic concept for the novel, whatever that may be, and then from that, going through a brainstorming process, coming up with ideas for characters, for settings, for events, for character arcs, coming up with kind of where just a whole bunch of different ideas, and these ideas at this stage aren't connected, and then from that brainstorming to generate what I consider to be a plot skeleton. And so it's just a very bare bones, first X happens, and then, Y, and then, just going through it at a very high level. And there might be like, say 3 to 5, maybe 10. It depends on the project, just very large scale beats for the story. And then from that skeleton, you start adding meat to the bones. It's like, okay, well, we've got this section where they're going to, go out on their adventure and, fight this enemy. It's like, okay, well, what events are going to lead up to that, and what events are going to follow that, and how's the fight going to play out, and start adding detail. And so this brainstorming and then adding to the skeleton process can go through a few different iterations. For stories as straightforward, I wouldn't call them simple, but as straightforward as the Titan Mage series, that process is pretty fast. For something that's more complex, like a something in the Gordian Division series. Well, first of all, David Weber is involved. There's the collaborator, and we're both brainstorming together. But also, it'll go through a few different iterations. There's more complexity to wrangle in the outlining process. There are more pitfalls to be aware of. The lore and the technology is much more established in that series, whereas there's some hand waving that can be done with a magic system. There's a bit of looseness there, even though there is a rule set that we developed for the Titan Mage series. Whereas there's very hard and fast rules in the Gordian Division series for how the time travel works and how it does not work and how it can break. And we've shown it breaking a few times, and the consequences for that. And so when I'm working on that series, it's a more involved process to get to the same point. But both both processes end up at the same point, which is, hey, I've got the skeleton, I've applied meat to the bones, and then from that collection of kind of flow of of the story, I then from that generate the a chapter and scene breakdown. And then once I've broken it out into the each individual scene, and then I again go through and I add more meat, and I'll go through a few times depending on again the series for Titan Mage, given that how we collaborate. I kept things kind of high level in terms of the level of detail. It's like, well, here are the major beats in the scene that need to happen in order for the plot to work. Whereas with a Gordian Division novel, it is very detailed. I'd say probably the level of detail on a scene by scene basis is probably somewhere between 5 and 10 times the amount of outlining that I'll do for a Gordian Division book. Now, there's also another aspect for some of the Gordian Division books, and those are the file books, such as the Dyson file. Because these are police... What?
I said, go pre-order it.
Yes, please. Please buy our products.
I have to do my marketing stuff occasionally.
But so with the file novels, there's also the police procedural aspect to it. And so while with those, there is that brainstorming process. It'll reach a point before the actual flow of the novel is determined, where the details of the crime are designed. And then the details of the investigation are designed. And then from those two, the flow of the events in the novel, they kind of form very organically. Once I know what the crime is and how it was perpetrated, and how the heroes are going to unravel the mystery, then the scenes just flow, and in very short order, I have the full scene by scene outline. I'd say for a file novel, the design of the crime and the design of the investigation is where most of the work happens. And the rest of the outlining is relatively easy. And I'd say the opposite is true for most other projects, in that most of the work is happening in the actual scene by scene outlining.
You bring up a really cool point, and something that I've actually gained more appreciation for in recent weeks. A lot of whenever we talk about outlining, story structure always comes up, and a lot of people wonder, like, what's the best story structure to work in? And there's lots to choose from, but one thing I've actually started doing recently is not necessarily thinking of which story structure is generally best, but what story structure is best for the specific genre that you're working in. Because I'm a huge fan of the hero's journey, for example. And but sometimes the stories that I want to tell, even though I like writing about heroes, they don't vibe well with that particular structure. And I think that was one of the difficulties I was running into with the outline for Titan Mage series 2. There was a certain hero's journey element to some of it, and after a while I realized that I was trying to fit a pulp adventure structure into the hero's journey, and there are some similarities there, but I was trying to bend my story in a way it didn't want to go. And once I realized that I wanted to write specifically Indiana Jones style pulp adventure, stuff started coming together. And what I did,
Indiana Jones with mechs,
yeah,
magic tech mechs.
Jacob is the one writing the outlines for this series, but I am still as a mode of as a way to generate ideas. I have basically been immersing myself in adventure novels and adventure movies. And one of the movies that we recently watched was Romancing the Stone, which you do not hear nearly enough about for being as good of a movie as it is. I mean, I know it's a fairly older movie, but it hits all of those like romantic comedy adventure points so perfectly. And it does it so well that when I watched it, stuff started unlocking in my head. It was like, well, obviously I should have been doing this in this story. Obviously we need to have one of these things. And obviously the characters in this series need to be searching for some kind of MacGuffin rock. And there needs to be this kind of like slow build romance. There needs to be this, there needs to be that. And it was just, it's all stuff that is maybe not wholly unique to that genre, but distinct to adventure. And once I realized exactly what kind of story I wanted to tell and what kind of structure needed to be applied to it, stuff started coming together really well for Titan Mage Series 2. I've also been reading, one of the things that I do when my writing brain just shuts off is I will try to read something that is close to what I'm trying to accomplish. And I come from a young adult literature background. I worked in like teen services at my local library for close to a decade, I want to say. And so my entire background was in young adult adventure, and that most of what I'd read is written for teens. And so I finally started, like, I've been branching out into adult sci-fi and adult fantasy since I left the library, but finally was like, you know what, I should probably read some men's adventure that's actually like written for adults. And I started reading Clive Cussler, and I picked up Sahara, and I originally just intended to read it as, you know, a just chill out, kick back, enjoy it kind of book. But I find myself taking notes on what he's doing that makes the story so effective. And it's become a really fun exercise. Like I have to make sure I don't read it at night, because when I read at night, I'm trying to go to sleep. I'm trying to relax, and I keep wanting to get up and get a little post-it note and do like, oh, the way he introduced this character was perfect. The way he introduced this trope was perfect, and it's distinct to that genre. Let's see. Do we have any more questions? I don't think so. A dazzling inspiration. Yes, Stephen, he definitely was. And one thing that's actually been pretty absurd recently, but maybe not absurd in retrospect. I'm the sort of person where I've always processed things through writing. Like when I was a kid, if I was learning anything in school, I would end up writing stories about it. It was how I got it into my brain. And it's one of the most very sad, but also very fascinating things about this past week is how I have been processing the passing of Nova. And obviously, she's not physically there anymore. But I'm the sort of person where, I invent fully realized people all the time in my head, and they live in my head. And I have found that Nova has become one of those characters. And as a result, I have been she's been wandering around my brain, and I have gotten, I want to say, 2 to 3 new series ideas out of this little ghost Nova who is hanging out in my brain. And they're Jacob and I are actually really excited to collaborate on some of them when we finally get some of these out of the way. But it's
in our copious amounts of free time.
In our copious amounts of free time. But it's been real. That has been one of the most unexpected parts of the grief. The obviously I miss Nova, but I find that when I'm thinking about her, I'm immeasurably sad. But when I'm doing something about her or related to her, the tears go away. And it has some interesting implications for writing. There are going to be lots of Nova references, but some of them will be sad. But I'm really looking forward to some of the stuff that I'm writing, because it's excellent stuff, at least as far as the ideas go, and it comes from a very sad place, but it's a productive way to process something really terrible, and that's what I do. Mona Lisa says, "Write her into a story." Oh yeah, there are plans.
We have plans.
Oh yeah, and I won't talk too much about the plans right now, because some are far future. But I mean, she's already in Monster Punk Horizon, and well, I will say this one, at the risk of removing some urgency from the story, there is a short story coming up. It might evolve into a complete novel. A monster known as the Plot falls through the dazzling skies, and this is a set of hunters where they routinely make armor from monsters. So Nova hunts the Plot. She gets some Plot armor, and there's no way Nova is dying in the series. Just screw that. But she fights the Plot and gets her little set of Plot mithril. and so it's going to be, it has sad origins, but it is going to be a heck of fun story.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very, send off is the wrong word at this point, but it's a very fine homage to her. And so, but there was going to be a multiverse of Novas before this happened, but oh yeah, now there's multiple. There's definitely going to be multiple Novas. Nova and Nimitz forever. Yes, absolutely yes. All right. Well, we've got actually. Oh, you know what? I forgot. I had some questions come in through Patreon earlier in the week that I wanted to make sure to get into, and I think we've covered them a little bit. Froeby wanted to know. Let me actually pull up Patreon, because once again I cannot read my handwriting. Where'd it go? I clicked away from it. Okay, give me a second. I gotta find the comments again. Okay. So when you're outlining a series, do you make a detailed outline of the entire series and then break it into individual books, or do you prefer to make a vague series outline and then fill in the details with the book outlines?
I think what we've been doing so far is having a kind of very generalized main arc, and then working on it on a book by book basis. Mm-hmm. And the Gordian Division books have, they've been designed as standalones. Mm-hmm. So that, while there is a kind of, future history that, a path that we're charting for these characters and the societies that are in that series, it's not written in stone where David and I take the series. But I can definitely see cases where, I would want to plan things out in much greater detail. It's just the projects so far have been, more, we focus on one novel at a time. We kind of keep the trajectory in mind. With Time Mage, we outlined, the entire series before the first book came out.
Yeah.
But
it was a very high level outline.
Yeah. But that also, there were some fun things.
Oh yeah.
That we were able to do in terms of very subtle Chekhov's guns.
Oh yeah,
such as just throwing in the name for Mount Driver in the first scene.
Yeah, in the very
and
first.
It's like, well, why is a mountain called Mount Driver? It's like, well, you find out in book 5.
Yep, exactly. And we're kind of approaching series 2 in a similar way as well. Series 2 is slightly different because series 2 follows the crew of the Indigo Griffin, which you meet at the end of Titan Mage 2, and they become increasingly more important as that series goes on. But in Titan Mage, you get the impression that they're off doing their own story, and you get to see their story. There is an overarching plan for that. But it's been kind of interesting to write in that, first of all, there are going to be more books in that series than I'd initially planned. Part of the restructuring is that I had initially wanted to write book 1 as picking up a little bit before Locke and company meet them in book 2. But one of the challenges was that the character relationships just did not come across.
The dynamics are already established, and for a series like that, we were talking about, and we were also talking about the difficulties that you were having with both outlining it and writing it, and how much you were trying to cram into 3 chapters, and so we made the decision that, hey, wouldn't it make a lot more sense if we move the clock back, I think 3 years, and show how this team came together, and basically show their first adventure together. And one of the things that I forget how prevalent it's mentioned within the Titan Mage series, but you have the background where you have these teams of archaeologists, and they go into ruins, and occasionally they have to fight eldritch monsters. And it's just sort of
they have a plan for what happens when they unleash an eldritch monster. It's like, here's the procedure. We just unleashed Cthulhu. What do we do today?
So that may happen in book 1.
But yeah, you get the story of how they came together, and it's going to be more than one book before they actually even reach Locke and company. So it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to it because the characters, I get to do more justice to them than the original outline allowed for. Well, I think
it's also just a fun story, seeing a team coalesce.
They're fun characters too, and they've got really good chemistry, and I love writing them. Well, we're getting down to the last little bit, and so if anyone else has any more questions about outlining, just pop them in, and we'll get to them. But while we wait for those to come in, I guess we'll do our usual wrap up.
Were there any more questions on the Patreon?
No, I think that was it.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Yeah. But all right. So first, simple question: what you been watching this week, Jacob?
We've been watching a lot of One Piece movies.
Well, yeah, One Piece movies. You have to go to last week's episode to see me freak the heck out about One Piece, the Netflix One Piece. And now I'm very proud of myself because I have gotten who is from my old teen group? What? Who are you? Is that Justin? I think I know you from like 10 years ago. Hi, man. Oh, we got a comment on there that says, hello from the old teen group of Hyperbole. Love your books and looking forward to the future. I used to run a teen writing group when I worked for the library. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy now. That makes my heart happy. I forgot what I was talking about, but it is Justin. Yes, I remembered it. Yes, we're talking about what we were watching. But hello, Justin. It has been a long time, but hello, and good to see you again. But yeah, I'm proud of myself because I took Jacob from being completely indifferent about One Piece, the anime, to just assuming we're going to watch One Piece movies every night. And so it's been a real delight. So we've been watching that. You have introduced me to the original Japanese Iron Chef, which has been great. Because I
just recently discovered, it's like, oh wow, this is like available for free on YouTube now. It's like, oh okay, so just popping on some of
love
the
the
original
American
Japanese
version.
Iron Chef episodes, which are
It's so
great.
over the top. I love it so much. Like, it is so, like, just absolutely dramatic. It's my new favorite thing. So we got to watch more Iron Chef. I've seen like one episode about the fatty tuna and wine or something. I only indistinctly remember what it was about. And yeah, Froby says Iron Chef was awesome. Yes. So
Well, then you have like, you know, you have like the Iron Chef Japanese, the Iron Chef French, the Iron Chef Chinese, but then they also add Iron Chef Italian. And for some reason, he's like off to the side, and he rises separately from the other three, and he's like surrounded by people playing on violins.
Magnificent. And I'm determined one day I want to write a Monster Punk Horizon story just about all the cooks, and I absolutely have to somehow include Iron Chef references in it because it's so good.
Iron Chef and Food Wars references.
Yes, Food Wars. Oh my gosh, I need to rewatch Food Wars. I haven't been. I think everything I've been watching with you. So I guess the next question is what you playing. I haven't been playing all that much this month.
So I was playing Armored Core and I was enjoying it a lot. I beat New Game, and I've been working my way through New Game Plus. And
I haven't beaten it yet. I'm gonna play some with Dazzle while he sits on my lap and chills.
Then I suddenly had 4 outlines to create. So, and then on top of that, you know, Nova started feeling ill. She started losing energy, and so that's kind of when I was, you know, sensing things were going poorly for her. And given that Armored Core is a From Software game, it fights back quite hard, and I wanted something that would just lay down and die for me. So I downloaded just something to relax to. So I downloaded the Separate Ways DLC for the Resident Evil 4 remake, and I've been playing a few loops of that, and it's very enjoyable. It's really fun, really well put together. I just think like my only gripe with it is that the new voice actress for Ada Wong, her delivery is kind of flat. The voice actress from who played Ada in the Resident Evil 2 remake, I think she did a better job. But
with the turtleneck dress she's got on, her voice is irrelevant. It's so distracting. Like, it's like I want to wear something like that myself, you know, especially with the gun holster and whatnot, except I'd like have a phone or some food. Like, it could be my snack holster. But yeah, it's like I don't like the way turtlenecks fit around my neck because it's like, ugh. But
it is a very attractive outfit. It is, you know,
eyeballs.
And how she moves around that well with heels that high,
that's just video game characters.
It's just video game logic.
Made appearance on Iron Chef. You know what? I'm gonna have to write a Titan Mage food short story too. For those who don't know, Froeby is actually I Tuckerized Froeby in at least one Titan Mage novel. There's I think the first time he shows up is in book 4, and he's Baker Froeby, and he makes the really good cakes in at the Endpoint City at the Arcane Indexes bakery. So he's legendary. So yeah, Baker Froeby might have to show up in a Titan Mage cooking story. Yeah, I'll add that to my list of things to outline. Yes.
So yeah, I have been playing through Separate Ways multiple times. It just for the most part just put on the easiest difficulty because I just didn't feel like having a game fight back. I needed something to relax to because there's been a lot of stress.
I want to go play something like Animal Crossing, but not Animal Crossing, because Animal Crossing, like, it's supposed to be a relaxing game, but it just fills me with rage. Like, I can't even articulate why. I start playing and I get angry.
the other game that both of us have been playing, Come
What
on,
have we been playing?
Monster Hunter Now.
Yes! Oh my gosh, that game is so much better than it
Tap,
has
tap,
any
tap,
right
tap.
to be
Just
for a little free.
tapping.
Like, I thought it was going to be a reskin of Pokemon Go, but it's actually like legit. Like you can build armor in it and you can customize things, and it's a really good little mobile game, and it's been a lot of fun. Because I play a lot more Pokemon Go than someone who is in her late 30s should. I know all the good locations locally, and a lot of the same locations apply in Monster Hunter Now because of the because similar data sources. And so we've been going on little dates around to the hot monster locations and catching monsters, and then going to get exciting food. And it's been a fun little set of weeks. But yeah, that's a super fun little game.
There's been highs and lows over the past month, definitely.
It's been a month, and I'm looking forward to not doing any of that next month. It is spooky season, and I'm gonna eat lots of candy corn and buy a whole lot of Halloween candy, even though no one comes to our house, and then eat it all. And no, dang it, I shouldn't have said my plan. Yeah, it's I do that every year. We never get any kids because all the churches around us do trunk or treat, but I buy lots of candy in hopes, and it's like, oh, no kids came, I guess I gotta eat it all myself.
Hey, you really should cut
I
back
really
on
should.
that.
I know, I really should. But I'll eat more salads this week. I eat a lettuce. So last question. Oh, do you have?
And then there's what we've been reading, right?
What have we been reading? What have you been reading, Jacob?
Okay, so I've been reading something that is it's actually very expensive, and you can't just buy it on its own. You have to buy the thing that goes with it. This kind of tells you the kind of month that I've been having. So this is what I've been reading. So this is a training manual. It's a Sit-Train Digital Industry Academy Somatic WinCC Unified and Unified Comfort Panels. I do not recommend this as the entry point into the series.
I lost you at like the third word. Like, what even? I saw the spiral down, and I was like, I know this is going to be boring as heck.
Yeah, I've been in some work training, and so that's what I've been reading. But it's
I should have been supporting you more this week, knowing you were going through both Nova and that.
So I haven't been doing any fun reading. But no, the class is for it's a unification. This particular software package unifies programmable logic controllers with HMI software, so that as you're like programming in your controller, some of the foundational stuff is already set up for you for the HMI development. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, I'm sorry. I try to make it as simple as possible.
I went into my autopilot smile and nod. So very interesting, Jacob.
It's an interesting unified approach to software development in an industrial setting.
I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
But as for me, I have been chilling the heck out. Actually, I've been reading, Clive Cussler's Sahara, which I freaking love. If you are a Clive Cussler fan, tell me your favorite books, because I need to read more, and he has like 1 million, and that's too many for me to think about. So, but I'm really enjoying it. It's a nice, straightforward adventure with like guns and stuff. So anyway, I've also been reading Sky in the Deep by Adrian Young, and the primary reason why is because my sister named her baby after the main character, and so it's made for a really interesting reading experience, because the story itself is like pseudo Viking young adult, not low fantasy in the there's magic sense, but it's like it's Vikings, but it's not our world, it's like another world. But so Viking like raids are happening, and every time I see the main character's name, I just picture this little murder baby going and doing violence. And it automatically pops into my head, and it's an entertaining book. But I keep seeing my sister's little 2-year-old whenever she pops up. And but on the flip side too, whenever anything bad happens to this character, like when someone comes for Elin, I'm like, murder him, girl, get him, don't let him do that to you. So it's intense for reasons the author did not intend. But I've also been reading a whole ton of manga because that's how I chill out. And the standout, oh my gosh, I think I showed you this
that one. Wow, yeah.
There is a shoujo manga called Kaiju Girl Caramelize, and the main character is like a regular old high school girl, except that every time she gets feelings of love, she turns into a kaiju. And it's talk about awkward high school body changes, and it's one of those where the premise is so silly, but it is perfectly executed, and it knows exactly how silly it is, and just it does it just absolutely wonderfully, and I love it. So I got to read the rest of the series now, but it's so good. But yeah, we have gone a little bit over, as we do. So you have anything you want to add, Jacob, other than please pre-order my book?
No, I think that's the only thing.
Yeah. So, well, thank you guys for joining us. And also thank you for asking about the outlines to begin with. Actually, that reminds me, the reason why we did this in the first place was because there was a period where we had a ton of people asking about our outlines, just out of the blue. And so we were like, let's just do a video. But also, if you want to see a little deeper look into how our outlining process works and how the production process works, on the Edie Skye Patreon, I have posted the outlines for Titan Mage, and not just Jacob's original outlines, but the outlines that I doodled on as I developed ideas as I wrote. And so you get to see Jacob's originals, which I uploaded separately, but then you also get to see my scans of all my crazy little chaotic notes. So you get to see a little deep look into how the chaotic magic happens, and my patrons have really enjoyed them. And so if you would like that, join my Patreon. But yeah, I think that's all I have. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us, and we will see you whenever the next one is.